We're all wired up. We just begin.
Yeah, with maybe evening chanting in English. Probably the. How should we do this? It's been 4 years since I've done this. How long do we normally do the chanting for? Like the evening chanting in English is quite long, but I remember we don't do chanting for that long.
We usually do the...
Just do the dedication.
Oh, the English and Pali.
Pali and English together.
The morning.
Up to the Namo Tassa.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Remember now?
So we're coming back. We'll do the dedication of offerings in Pali and English at the beginning of the morning chanting. Yo so bhagava arahang samma sambuddho, to the Blessed One, the Lord, who fully attained perfect enlightenment. So akato yena bhagavata dhammo, to the teaching which he expounded so well. Supatipano ya sambhagavato sāvaka sangho, and to the Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well. Tamayang bhagavanta sadamang sasangang, to these the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha. Imehi sakare yata rahang aropite iabhipujayama. We render with offerings our rightful homage. Sadhu no pante bhagava suchiraparini utopi. It is well for us that the Blessed One, having attained liberation, Pachima Janata Nukampa Manasa, still had compassion for later generations. Ime sakare dukhatapana karabhute pati kanhatu. May these simple offerings be accepted. Amhakandi karatang hita yasukaya, for our long-lasting benefit and for the happiness it gives us. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava, the Lord, the perfectly enlightened and blessed One. Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. I render homage to the Buddha, the Blessed One. So akato
Bhagavata Dhammo, the teaching so completely explained by him. Dhammang namasami, I bow to the Dhamma. Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho, the Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well. Sanghang namami, I bow to the Sangha. Andvayang Buddhassa Bhagavato Bhupapa Kanama Karangaroma Se Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed, Noble, and perfectly enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed, Noble, and perfectly enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed, Noble, and perfectly enlightened One.
We can also chant the Buddha's words on loving kindness, which is found page 37.
The
Nope.
new book.
This is the old one.
28.
Page 28, thank you. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm, and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be at ease, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born. May all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child. So with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings,
radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world.
Can we take this one? Can we take this one down a little bit? That's good, very good. Thank you. So for those who might be new to these gatherings, they'll sit in meditation for about 45 minutes. So I'll give a little bit of guidance at the start of the sitting. Before trying to do anything, to work with the mind or the body, it's always helpful to take a moment to fully appreciate where are we starting from. How does the body feel? Are we comfortable, uncomfortable? Any aches and pains? Do we feel warm or cool? How does the body feel? There's no right or wrong way that the feelings of the body should be, but rather we make the starting point for the practice this quality of awakened appreciation, awareness of what's present. So take a moment just to fully appreciate, to notice what the feelings of the body are. What's the mood of the mind? In a similar way, is to appreciate the material that we're working with. Do we feel alert or sleepy? Sad? Excited? critical. What's the mood of the mind? Anxious? Friendly? In this way, we're bringing attention to this body, this mind at this moment. This is our starting point. This is the material that's being crafted, molded, worked with. Here it is. This body, this mind, how it is at this moment. Not how it should be or could be, but this, exactly this. And based on that awareness, bring attention to the body. Notice how you're holding a spine. How's the body sitting? Whether it's on a chair or a stool or cushion, how is it? So if we bring attention to the spine, feeling how our body is holding itself, rather than if you notice that your posture is slouched or bent over, rather than thinking, I should sit up straight, I should be alert, leaving those I shoulds be what they are, just not follow them, not suppress them, but instead let the quality of awareness be brought to the feelings of your spine. Let the awareness have its own effect. And what happens is the body adjusts on its own. That awareness is the balancing, enlivening agent. Rather than me straightening my posture, the body stretches, the spine lengthens, adjusts, finds its own balance, guided by that quality of awareness. And taking a moment to let the same awareness sweep through the rest of the body, to be brought to the rest of the body. Similarly, let those adaptations, adjustments, let them happen on their own. Where you notice tension and tightness, then that awareness brings about a relaxation, an easing. Where things are seen or felt to be very slack, listless. And bringing awareness there, notice how the body straightens, energizes. Well, it's a self-adjusting system. And the guiding principle is that of awareness itself. Well, let this sweep through the body. Let the body be filled with this quality of awake, aware appreciation. Let it adjust and settle. your face, your neck, your shoulders, your arms and hands, the chest, your abdomen, hip joints, all the way down through our legs to our toes, letting the whole system be energized, alert, relaxed. The mind's tendency, its habit, is to drift towards agitation, getting wrapped up in thought and imagination, projection. Hearing the sound of a siren and creating a story around it, irritated by the noise or worried about the situation that the siren is a response to. The mind easily gets distracted, gets busy, agitated. Similarly, the mind, when things go quiet, can drift into a dull, sleepy, semi-conscious state. The siren fades, everything is quiet. We start dozing off. So these are the natural habits, tendencies of the mind, to move towards dullness and sleepiness, to move towards agitation, busyness. So again, not based on, I should be awake, I should concentrate, I shouldn't be distracted, I should be alert, I should be focused. Let all of those I shoulds be put aside, leave them alone, and let the quality of awareness itself, awakened awareness, inform the process of focusing. We take a simple object, a reference point, to be a center of attention, a flag marking the present reality. Many different things can be used for this, but the most accessible, most tangible, most helpful for most people is the natural rhythm of our own breathing. Just how the body breathes on its own. You don't have to be the breather. The body is already breathing. So, let that rhythm of the breath, that constellation of feeling, be right at the very center. Not to write a whole story about the breathing, but just take that flow of sensation. Let that be at the center of attention. And when the mind gets busy and agitated, let that be noticed. Notice that, feel that. Bring awareness to that agitated, busy, distracted state. Feeling that, knowing that, and the heart lets go. Comes back to the rhythm of the breathing once again. Or if your mind drifts into dullness, sleepiness, just switches off and stops feeling. As soon as that's noticed, once again, rather than following the I should wake up, I've fallen asleep again, I'm a bad meditator. Notice that instead, what does it feel like when the mind is caught in dullness? What's its quality? Bringing attention to that, feeling that, knowing that, let that have its effect. See how that energizes, brightens, clarifies the mind, helps the attention to be more focused, centered. In this way, we're developing the practice of mindfulness of breathing, but without there being a me who's the meditator, a me the concentrator, me the breather, but rather the heart is aware of the rhythm of the breath, knowing this flow of sensation, coming, going, changing. In this particular development of the practice, Dhamma practice, then when there is a quality of waking up, letting go, coming back to the center, notice how that feels. In that moment of the heart being free of clinging, having let go, what's the result of that? Where does it take you? Notice this. The heart free of clinging has what characteristics, what qualities? It's peaceful, spacious. There's a sense of limitlessness, unboundedness, and no sense of self. This is the texture, the quality of the heart free of clinging. Let that speak for itself. Notice that, feel that, appreciate that. We don't have to say, this is the goal, or this is attractive, or this is successful meditation. All of that is extra. Instead, just let that spaciousness, that boundlessness of the silent heart, let that be known. Let that speak for itself. now's the time for those who wish to request the opportunity to determine the refuges and precepts. These will be found in the chanting books, page 72. So those who wish to join in with us, please do. If you prefer just to sit and listen and watch, that's quite all right as well. So whenever you're ready, please begin.
Sarena saha pancha silani yachama dutiyampi mayam bante tisaraneya saha pancha silani yachama tatiyampi mayam bante tisaraneya saha pancha silani yachama.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sanghang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Tisarana gamanang nititang. Panatipata Vairapmani sikaparang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature. Adinadana Vairapmani sikaparang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given.
I undertake the precept
Kamesu michachara Vairapmani sikaparang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from sexual misconduct. Musavada Vairapmani sikaparang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from lying. Sura meraya majappamadatana Vairapmani sikaparang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs which lead to carelessness.
I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs which lead to carelessness.
Imani panchasika parani silena sugating yanti silena poga sambara silena nibuting yanti tasama silang viso daye.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Very good.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. I'm very glad indeed to be here at the Berkeley Buddhist Monastery once again. It's been about 4 years since I was last here, so time flies by. It was pre-COVID was the last time. I think the autumn of 2019 was that last visit here to Berkeley. So very glad to be back once again and to be with you all. Just flew in from England yesterday and aiming to be at the Abhayagiri Katina Festival on Sunday, and then here in the region up until the 20th, and then going back to England again. That's my plan for these days, this period. In the question time, the tea time conversations, one of the things that came up was about how to respond skillfully to conflict, also to difficulties in our lives of various kinds, whether it's a loss of a loved one, someone close to us has passed away, whether it's conflict in the family and difficulty in our home life or in the larger world. And I feel that the Buddha's teaching has a lot of very skillful guidelines to give us in this area, sense of the quality of dukkha, dissatisfaction, is sort of chapter 1, page 1 subject of Buddha Dhamma, the experience of difficulty, tension, conflict, friction. This is right at the center of our lives, or center of attention of the Buddha's teaching. One of the aspects of our lives, and it's difficult to generalize, and you can't say it's the case for everyone, but one of the factors of our lives is that we very easily live from a theoretical position, how I should be, how other members of our family should be, how the people in the workplace should be, other people on the road, how they should be in the society, and political leaders, how they should be, how different countries should be. And we have a tendency to put the ideal at the very center, and then the reality is sort of off at the edges. Like, well, that's kind of how it is, but how it should be is like this. You know? And that living here in the USA, I now live in Britain. I lived here in the USA for about 14 years or so, and been visiting since 1990, and I'm a US citizen as well as a Brit by my passports and legal status. So I think I can speak a little bit for American life as well. And I feel it's one of the things in the Constitution that of the USA that it's how it says, all men are created equal, and that that's a kind of declaration of it is this way, and we have in the US these ideals, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution. These are front center. People learn about these in high school, and you learn to recite them and have all these principles very deeply embedded. And so this is the ideal, how everyone should be. And the actual reality, when you say all people, well, all men are created equal, that's a subject on its own. But that it can say, well, that's the ideal, but the actuality on a day-to-day level is that things are not equal. Things are quite divided, and that there's some great polarities or great stratification, many different layers and levels in society. So I feel one of the great blessings of Buddha Dhamma is that it, even though we have ideals like a shrine with a Buddha image, and we have that in as part of the picture of our lives, the use of that, those kind of symbols and ideals, they are part of our world or part of our Buddhist practice. But the centerpiece is your life, this body, this mind. That's what we work on. So we put the actuality at the center, and the ideal is off at the edges. That you have, as Ajahn Sumedho would say, the Buddha image is an ideal. The Buddha's knees never get sore. The Buddha image never needs to eat or even to breathe. You can be sure that never had to change posture when getting uncomfortable. It's an ideal. It's not alive. It's not real. But our lives, we have to change our posture. We have to breathe. We have to eat. We live. We feel, and so that approach of putting the reality at the center and having the ideals off at the edges, I feel that's a helpful framework for our lives. When we are dealing with difficulties, whether it's the death of someone close to us, or whether it's conflict in the family, or in the society, in the world, then if we very consciously recognize the ideal and saying, yeah, we should all live harmoniously with each other. We should, I should be able to get over this problem, being sacked from the workplace, or losing my job, or a loved one passing away. The important thing is we start from where we are, just like as I was saying in the meditation. We start from where we are. And again, as I was giving some guidance in the meditation, rather than coming from a place of self-view, like I should sit up straight, I'm supposed to be meditating, I'm drifting off. I'm a bad meditator, I need to tighten up. Then again, we're taking the ideal of how I should be more awake, or I should be more relaxed, or I should be more focused, I shouldn't be so distracted. We're, in a sense, using an ideal, but handling it based on self-view, and even though our efforts are well-intentioned, that there's an inspiration, a motivation for things to develop towards peacefulness, towards clarity, towards liberation. The very way that it's being done, the very way that the mind is working with it, like I should be this way, I shouldn't be that way, I should have more of this, I should have less of that. The very way that the mind is working with it is increasing the problematic nature. We're compounding the problem, because it's me trying to sit up straight, me trying to concentrate, me trying to get rid of my distracting thoughts. And the more me there is in it, the more dukkha. It's a fairly simple equation. More me equals more dukkha, less me equals less dukkha. The simple mathematics of ending suffering. So that in terms of working with difficulty, with the pain of loss, or the difficulties of conflict of various kinds, then the starting from where we are, and the means of working with where we are, I would say is embodied right there in the nature of the Buddha. The word Buddha itself means awake, that which is awake. And that when we are taking refuge in the Buddha, Bhutang Saranang Gacchami, what that means essentially is there is the choice to wake up. This is the determination, the choice, the motivation to wake up. Bhutang Saranang Gacchami. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in wakefulness. I choose to be awake. That's essentially what that means. And so that when we feel grief, when we feel confusion, when we feel anger or righteous indignation, then the most skillful way of working with these qualities is to be awake to them. If we start from the position of idealism, thinking I'm supposed to be a good Buddhist, I shouldn't be angry, I shouldn't feel righteous indignation. I'm a Buddhist, I'm supposed to be beyond that. Then we're, in a sense, trying to climb over this wall of righteous indignation or anger or whatever, this afflictive emotion, to get to this happy place on the other side where I should be. But rather than that, the encouragement is to be awake to those feelings of indignation, to be awake to that feeling of loss, of sadness. And this has come also earlier today, the people who came to join in with the meal offering over in San Mateo this morning, people asking the same kind of questions. That, how do you work with that? How do you deal with that? So to start from where you are, wake up to that feeling that rather than I shouldn't have angry feelings, I shouldn't feel righteous indignation. Here it is. It arises because of the causes and conditions of your life. You have a mind, you have a body, you're living in a family and society, and so things bring those emotional reactions into being. Sadness, the feelings of conflict or aversion, indignation, they arise. So to take refuge in the Buddha, to embody that quality of awareness, is to know, here is the feeling of indignation, here it is, it feels like this. Not that I have got this and this is a problem, I should get rid of it, or this is justified and I should, and I want to act on it. So I'm not either indulging it and following it, or trying to suppress it and get rid of it, but rather to be awake to that. Here is the feeling of righteous indignation, here's the feeling of sadness, of grief, of loss. It feels this way, it has this nature. If you try to push it away and suppress it and think, I shouldn't feel this way, that very pushing away, it reifies it, it makes it more solid, it gives it a false substantiality. If you follow it, then you give it substantiality too. You make it more solid and real than it genuinely is. And so both of those extremes create more causes for dukkha, for difficulty. So when the heart is awake to that, then rather than living reactively, we're able to live responsively. So I was talking about in the sitting, it's a self-adjusting system, so that when there's awareness, like if you notice your body is slouched over, if you bring awareness to that slumping posture, then rather than coming from I should sit up straight, I'm slouching it again. Just let the mind be aware of that, and then the body will straighten on its own. It's not magic, it's how things work, I would say. So that self-adjusting system doesn't just apply for the physical posture during meditation, it's how we can run our whole lives. If we bring awareness to those feelings of indignation or sadness, of anger or tension, the kind of stress of a conflict, then the way that it works is that by the heart being open to that, then there's an adjusting of the system, that you find there's a spaciousness, you're able to respond to the situation rather than react to it, which means that to say that if that particular emotion has arisen, or you're in the middle of a conversation, then there's an awareness of that, and that that spaciousness into which that emotion enters and is received. There's a wisdom quality that's present as well in that spaciousness of the heart. There's a wisdom that helps to inform, is there something to say? Is there nothing to say? What would be good to say? Is there something to be done? Should I take a step forward? Should I be still? What's the best thing to do? And that guidance, those kind of adjustments, what to say, what not to say, what to do, what not to do, that's not coming from self-view, that's not coming from an I should, or a plan, or even instruction from an ajahn, or the Buddha himself, but rather it's coming from the wisdom of your own citta, your own heart. It's your own natural wisdom being able to function freely. So this is what I mean by responsivity, being responsive rather than reactive. So that when we apply this quality of awakened awareness, then this, say, is a guiding principle for this life. And that the more it's applied, again, and looking at the results of that, you find that, that was by being awake to a situation, by being aware and responding from that more spacious and non-personal way, the results are very appealing, very positive, very helpful. We see, look, if you work in this way, this is the result. Aha, the results speak for themselves. And similarly, when we come from the self-view and say, you know, I should be like this, you shouldn't be like that, you shouldn't say that, you know, you're right and you're wrong, and the results of coming from a place of self-view, self and other, and these kind of personalizing habits, then again, looking at the results of that, you find that where it goes to is a much more tense, conflicted, alienated state. Almost always, I would say. In every situation, there's a greater sense of stressing, tensing in the heart, and more alienation and difficulty. Now, this is not easy to do. Because the habits of self-creation coming from a place of self-view is very, very strong, and that the conditioning that we have to demonize others, that they are wrong, those people over there, that lot. I'm good. My family, my team is good. The other team, the other lot, they are bad. They are wrong. These are very ancient and powerful forms of conditioning, ways of affecting our perceptions, and so it's not easy to let go of self-view and the mind creating things in terms of a fixed self and a fixed other. It's a very powerful, strong, ancient habit. And the more painful or challenging a situation is, the stronger those tendencies are. With say, physical threat or a crisis that that's got your name on and that you're having to deal with, then it really feels like me that's got this problem, me is in the midst of this crisis. It's a very distinct and solid sense of I. So it is challenging. It is a demand. It's difficult for us, but it's possible. And so this is why we practice. This is why the sort of training of the heart in Buddha Dhamma, it takes a long time. A lot of observing steadily, watching how it works, getting it wrong, getting distracted, getting lost, reacting from places of self-view and the desire for my gain and the fear of my loss and so on and so forth. But if there's a quality of patience and if there's a commitment and dedication, then slowly and steadily we can let those, say, the positive results of this life being guided by mindfulness and wisdom rather than by self-view, then that helps to guide our life in a more and more steadily, more and more completely, in a skillful way. One of the teachings I like to emphasize these days, there's a particular sutta where it's called the Avijja Sutta, the Ignorance Sutta, and there's not very many places in the Pali Canon where the Buddha talks about where ignorance comes from. Yeah, and also in the Buddhist use of the word ignorance, it doesn't just mean not having information, like being ignorant of a particular way to get into town, or not knowing how a computer program works. It's not a lack of information, but it's an unawareness, the mind not being fully awake or being fully aware. It's ignorance means more of a lack of mindfulness, a lack of heedfulness. But there is a couple of places where the Buddha goes into or talks about it. And one sutra in particular that he goes into quite a lot of detail, and I like to quote this because it's kind of, I feel, very significant. So he starts off asking, this group of people he's talking to, what is what is the fuel? What's the support for ignorance? What keeps ignorance alive? What makes the mind unmindful? And then he says it's the 5 hindrances: sense desire, ill will, sleepiness, dullness, restlessness, and skeptical doubt. That's what feeds. That's the fuel for ignorance. And he says, so what is the fuel? What's the support for the 5 hindrances? And then he says it's the 3 unwholesome types of action: unwholesomeness in thought, unwholesomeness in words, and unwholesomeness in action. Those 3 kinds of unwholesomeness are the support. They're the fuel. They're the power source of the 5 hindrances. So, okay, then what's the fuel? What's the support for those 3 unskillful habits? And then he says it's a lack of sense restraint, or essentially living reactively rather than responsively. If we are compulsive, reactive, then that's what feeds those 3 unwholesome roots of unwholesomeness in word, thought, and action. And then he goes on to say, so what's the support? What's the fuel for that living reactively rather than responsively? The lack of sense restraint. And then he says it's a lack of mindfulness and full awareness, and of sati sampajanya. And what's the cause? What's the reason for lack of mindfulness and full awareness? And then he says it's if I'm remembering this correctly, it's a lack of faith. Lack of faith. It's a lack of wise reflection, excuse me. It's a lack of one without wise reflection. And what's the cause? What's the fuel for a lack of wise reflection? Lack of faith. What's the cause? What's the fuel for a lack of faith? It's not listening to good teachings, not opening the mind to skillful guidance. And what is the cause? What is the fuel for not listening to the good Dhamma, not accessing skillful teachings? A lack of good friends. So that's the cause, that's the root, is not drawing close to good people. That's the root cause of ignorance, is not spending time with good people. So, and then he goes on to explain. He says, just as the rain falls onto the hilltops and forms into little puddles, and the puddles form into streams, and the streams form into tarns, little lakes, and the lakes form into rivers, and the small rivers form into big rivers, and the big rivers flow to the sea, and the sea is filled up by the rainwater. So too, ignorance is filled up in this way, in this causal chain, starting off with not drawing close to good people. Then, part 2 of the sutta, as you might predict. Then he says, what is the other side of that? And he says, if you draw close to good people, and the Pali for that is sappurisa sangseva. Sat means true or good, purisa means a person, sangseva means drawing close to. If you draw close to good people, then that supports the occasion to listen to good teachings. So just like here we all are, first Tuesday of the month, gathering together in the Berkeley Buddhist Monastery, I would say, drawing together to reflect on hopefully useful good teachings. So then, then if you draw close to good people, you have opportunity to listen to good teachings. Those teachings then give rise to faith. Then the faith gives rise to is the fuel, is the support for wise reflection. The presence of wise reflection that supports mindfulness and full awareness. Mindfulness and full awareness supports the capacity to live responsively rather than reactively, to not be impulsive, but to live in a reflective and responsive way. If you live responsively rather than reactively, that gives rise to a wholesomeness in thought, a wholesomeness in speech, a wholesomeness in action. And then with that in place, then it is slightly different from the negative pattern. So if there's these three wholesome qualities are empowered, if they are strengthened, then they are the fuel, they are the support for the four foundations of mindfulness. And the four foundations of mindfulness, and they are the fuel, they are the support for the seven factors of enlightenment. And then the seven factors of enlightenment, they are the fuel, they are the support for the quality of full understanding and liberation. Ta-da! Just as the rain falls onto the mountains and forms into pools and streams, and then the little streams form into big streams, and they flow to the oceans. The sea of full knowledge and liberation is filled up. So this is how that potentiality is brought to completion, brought to fulfillment. So basically, it matters who you hang out with. That's the short version. But it's the only place I know of in the whole Pali Canon where the Buddha spells it out in the kind of causal chain. And that if we want to live our life from a place of awareness rather than from a place of self-view, if we want to see how the mind gets drawn by those ancient and deeply rooted selfing habits, then the primary cause for breaking free from those unhelpful habits is spiritual friendship, sappurisa sangseva, drawing close to good people. Also, when the other instances where you find this in the teachings, where very famously Ananda came to the Buddha one day and said, I think that spiritual friendship is half of the holy life. Seemingly the unspoken preamble is that Ananda's been talking with another one of the monks, and they've been saying, meditation is the whole thing, or it's only meditation. That's the whole of the practice. And Ananda, who was a very friendly guy, very personable and very good at relating with others, very skilled. The unspoken preamble seems to be that Ananda was having a dialogue about that, saying, I think that actually spiritual friendship is at least half of the holy life. And so then he goes to the Buddha and says that, and the Buddha said, not so, Ananda, it's not half the holy life, it's the whole of the holy life. Which is a very significant statement. And also the very first verse of the highest blessings, to not associate with fools, but to associate with the wise. This is the highest blessing. Asevana chabalanang panditanang chasevana. Not to associate with fools, but to associate with the wise, to honor those worthy of honor. These are the highest blessings. So, and I know when I start going on about this, people say, well, I'd love not to associate with fools, Ajahn, but have you met my family? Or, can you come to my workplace? Could you make a visit to the office? So one of the points I make with respect to this is that association doesn't just mean being in the same room. It means carrying people around. So that if there is someone in your office or in the workplace or in your family that you've had conflict with, or that they behave in ways that are very disturbing or foolish or uninspiring, then we don't have to carry such people around. We don't have to we don't have to sort of try and pretend they're not there, but to not be giving that person a significant place in our life, to not be, because we can be, I live in a monastery where this kind of thing happens very easily. If someone behaves in an unskillful way, and then somebody gets a pet peeve about them, like, oh, that monkey's doing it again, you've got to do something about this. like I was saying at the tea time questions about the monk with the unskillful speech, that you can end up giving someone's unskillful qualities far more life, far more substantiality, because you're carrying them around. You're making a lot of it in your mind, so that not associating with foolish people, it's not just a matter of whether you're in the same room. It's also how much your mind makes of that person's characters. How much energy and effort do you spend grumbling about their wrongness and how they shouldn't be the way they are? And so that's association, I would say. That's that sangseva. You're creating that person, you're carrying them around. Even though you might think that you prefer not to have them about. On one level, that might be the case, but still, the habit can be just creating someone, carrying them around, and spending a lot of your own mind focusing on them, and not just people in the workplace or in the family, in the political arena as well. You can spend huge amounts of energy and time just righteously indignant about this person or that person. And so the not associating with foolish people, it's an internal practice as well as an external one, I would suggest. So, and I do like to emphasize this aspect of awareness and the development of awareness, because you might think, well, being aware, being awake, that's all inside. That's all. It's got to be from my mind, my intention, my heart, my commitment. But in these teachings, and particularly in that Avijja Sutta, the Buddha is saying, well, in order to be aware, to be awake, to cultivate vijja, then right at the root is drawing close to good people. It's not just about your own inner world. It's about who you hang out with. Also, the skillful examples, or the inspiring examples of the people around you. Just as you're not carrying around the unhelpful people, also just the giving attention, giving time to those who are beneficial, those who are helpful, those who you admire, those whose actions and words are say, a blessing in the world, to kind of lean in to their lives, to draw close to skillful people, to follow their example, to say, not be afraid to pick up the lead given by other wholesome, skillful people, and to make the effort to do that. That these are all roots of cultivation of that awareness that enables the heart to respond in a skillful way, to have that, to support that self-adjusting process of how we can work and live with other people in the family, in the workplace, in society, in a skillful way. If you're interested where to find it, it's in the Book of the Tens, the numerical discourses. I think it's Book of the Tens, Sutta number 61. I couldn't tell you what Sutta 62 is, but I know Sutta 61. So that I feel it's helpful to get the mind around that kind of a causal chain, and see that if we want to bring these wholesome influences into our life, then it makes a difference who you choose to be with, and how we spend our time. So I see the clock has gone around to 9:15, and I'd like to open things up for some questions and dialogue. So if anyone has anything they'd like to ask. Yes, Joyce. So people can hear the question. Yeah.
Okay. And then I started to apply it also to driving situations. And I think I've been practicing that all throughout in various situations. And I think this is the root of my non-reactivity now. I just have so much gratitude. I just have a lot of gratitude. Thank you. It really is life-changing.
Yes, yeah, it's a wonderful thing. Life is a lot more spacious when the heart is responsive rather than reactive. It's interesting when around someone or people who are given to that kind of reactivity, is that they're surrounded by wrongness all the time. You know, it's like everything is wrong. It's like too strong, too weak, too big, too small, too something, and it's kind of it's exhausting, and it's so easy to spend so much energy in that way, and when that responsivity is cultivated, then what we find is that the world is a much more spacious place, where there's, rather than being fixed on it should be this way, it shouldn't be that way, I am going to do this, I'm not going to do that, there's a ground of adaptability, so that you are, say, well, I'm heading to the grocery store, who knows if I'll get there or not, and then when you do get there, oh, I made it, yeah. Nice surprise. But if something gets in the way, there's the bus breaks down, or the roads are blocked, or somebody calls you up and you have to go on a different errand. Okay, get to the grocery store later on, rather than, oh, this person's ruining my program. That kind of adaptability. And I often say this: adaptability is the key to happiness. That, if we can set an intention in the work that we do, or the things we're aiming to achieve, but yet there's a recognition of things can easily not go in that direction. Things can come along that make it easier or more difficult, or other things to take care of. Then you go along with that and work with it. So you find that the world is a really big place. But the more that we are reactive and compulsive, and then things have got to be a certain way, and they need to fit my particular model or my plan, then the world is really small. We find a sense of limitation and tension in the heart. So we make the world very, very narrow, very small, through our own attitudes. So I'm a very dedicated advocate of adaptability. And you can't just decide, but it takes quite a bit of work. And first of all, recognizing where we are not adaptable, or it's got to be this way, or that's right, it shouldn't be that color, that's the wrong color. And just to be able to ask yourself, well, who says? Is that so? And this is what one of Ajahn Chah's many skillful teachings. He was a master of coming up with nifty meditation methods. And to develop that adaptability, whenever you find your mind making a judgment, oh, this is good, that's bad, or I'm going to do this, or I'm not going to do that, just to ask yourself the question, is that so? Is that right? And it's very interesting how just by dropping that into the flow of your perceptions, that you're contacting, you're kind of accessing that awake, aware quality of the heart that immediately knows, oh right, I don't know, it's not a sure thing. How could it be? Aha. So, but you need to. It's like a key. You need to put the right key in the lock, and then the door will open. If you haven't got the key, or it's the wrong key, then the door won't open. But if that's applied, and it's when you make this into a deliberate practice, say, okay, every time the mind makes a judgment, this is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong, this is beautiful, this is ugly. If you make a practice of flagging every judgment that happens during a day and responding by asking, is that so? It's shocking how many judgments we make during a day. I'm not reading anybody's mind, but it's in the hundreds, if not thousands. If you really add them up, it's like, wow, I do this a lot. There's but if there's a catching of those and saying, well, is that so? And so, why do I call this good? Why do I call this bad? Or I say, why do I call this big? Or why is this small? Then you're getting a perspective on how the mind creates the world, and that we don't recognize that most of the time. That our mind, it doesn't. I wouldn't say it creates reality, but it creates the world as we experience it, is built up out of our conditioning. And again, Ajahn Chah would pick up something like this and say, is this long or short? He said, well, if you compare it to a matchstick, you'd say this is quite long. It's longer than a matchstick. If you compare it to the distance from the earth to the sun, it's very short. So is it long or short? Yeah. But again, we don't notice those everyday judgments, those kind of measurements, the way we reckon things. We take them as absolute realities. We say this is a big hall, this is a small hall. And it's very interesting with the developing the site at Amaravati, building a new community hall there, so when we were working on the design, and we come up with some plans, and then some monks would say, "Is that going to be big enough? It looks really small." Other ones are saying, "That's gigantic. It's like it's an aircraft hangar. It's like it's the same marks on a piece of paper." But someone says, "It's huge. It's tiny. It's not going to be big enough. It's too big." So I'm not sure if it's because of all the building work we've been doing, but I have been reflecting a lot on that kind of aspect of Ajahn Chah's teachings, and the way that when you recognize, the mind is making a judgment, it's saying this is long, this is short, this is big, this is small, or like the length of time. You can say, we've been together for nearly 2 hours already this evening. 2 hours already? No, it's gone by in a flash. Well, yeah, 2 hours, Ajahn, absolutely. I thought it was maybe 4 or 5. This is going on forever. Or when you're in meditation, if you're sitting in meditation and the mind is very, very peaceful, very awake, and ding, wow, it's an hour gone by already. Wow, that's amazing. But then if your knees are aching and your back is aching and your mind is all over the place, and you look at the clock and you go, it's not even 5 minutes. No. Oh no. So these are the ways the mind reckons things. Is it long? Is it short? Is it big? Is it small? And it's very, very subjective. It's completely relative. And so that you can say, a second, is a second a long time or a short time? So, well, a second is hardly any time at all. But what do you measure it against? It's like I remember reading some popular science book about the Big Bang and the way that physicists have reckoned the expansion of the universe from the Big Bang, and they quite happily talk about saying we
we can be sure back to about 10 to the minus 37 of a second, and then this and this and this happened, and then at 10 to the minus 20 of a second, then by this time the universe has expanded to this size. And you think, we haven't even got to a whole second yet. We're still at 10 to the minus 20. We're still at like 20 zeros, 0.1 of a second. It's like, and the universe has already been very busy coming from its point of origin to expanding at great speed. And all of that is happening in way less than a second. So a lot is happening in a very, very short period of time. Short time? What are you measuring it against? Short, not to get too far off into that domain, but that, especially with an astrophysicist in the room. So that kind of measurement of things. Do we notice how much we do that in a day? What's long, what's short, what's good, what's bad, what's beautiful, what's ugly, what tastes good, what tastes bad? It's very relative. It's subjective. If you're ill and you've got an upset stomach, somebody might prepare your favorite food for you, and then what you normally would love and think, and always light up when that's around. Oh yes. Then if you're ill and you've got an upset stomach, even the thought of that same food, it's like, it's not the same food. It's like, ooh. You call it the same, but actually, subjectively, it's completely different. It's completely unappealing, and just the idea of it, just thinking of it, oh no thanks. So, is the food delicious or is it not? It's very subjective. So that simple reflection of Ajahn Chah's on is that so? That goes a very long way to creating that spaciousness, that adaptability of the heart, and that these noticing the judgments that we make and just questioning them. You don't have to rewrite them, but just to notice a judgment is being made. The mind is giving a value, and then letting that recognition have its effect. So we find ourselves in a much more spacious world, and with a lot more opportunities, a lot more possibilities than we thought there were. Any other questions, thoughts? And please do use the microphone if you wish to ask a question. Yes. Can you use the microphone so people can hear?
Really quick, you mentioned the name of the book at the previous Q&A. What was the name of the book again?
I'm Right, You're Wrong.
Okay, and you said we have it? No, you don't have it. Okay.
They don't have it
Maybe
here.
online.
And we don't have it either. That's the only one they don't have. They have all the other Brahma Viharas.
Aha. That must be a popular title. If you go to Abhayagiri, I certainly brought some over from England, so if you go to Abhayagiri, then they'll have copies there.
We're out at Abhayagiri, so I saved them all to bring back to Abhayagiri.
Yeah. So you can also find it on the Amaravati website. There's a series about the 4 Brahma Viharas, the sublime abidings. And so that one's the one on metta, is called I'm Right, You're Wrong. Any other thoughts, questions? Yes.
You mentioned that it's most important to be. So you mentioned it's important to be with good friends. So how do we find ourselves to be with good friends? Like just like luck, or is it karma, or like?
Well, karma just means action. So you choosing to ask a question is creating karma.
keeping your eyes open, your senses open, and noticing who are people who are worthy of respect, people who are kind, people who are wise, people who are unselfish, and to the degree possible, drawing close to them, or if they are people who live far away or public figures, just taking the opportunity to listen to their recordings of their talks or their reading their works. Just seeing where you can find those qualities of goodness and drawing close in whatever ways you can, letting the mind be open to the example that they give and the words that they say. That make sense?
Sort of. Well, it's next, not that I know there is a next lifetime, but let's say next lifetime, how do we draw to be friends?
Well,
I don't know.
yeah.
Question.
Well, if you do it in this life and you make it something that's a priority, the tea time. One of the questions was about past lives and future lives, and so that if you make a habit in this life of when you hear the words of a wise person, then you move towards that. You say, "Oh, I want to know more about that. I want to draw closer." If you make that something that is a familiar pattern, that you make those choices, the choices that you make in this life are likely to influence the choices that you make and the opportunities that arise in another life. Also, you can you can set in this lifetime. In these days, you can set intentions to say, okay, during this day, early in the morning, so, okay, during today, I'll do what I can to draw close to good people, to pay attention to good people, to follow skillful examples, and not to follow unskillful examples just because they're exciting or interesting or colourful. To set an intention and do what you can to follow that intention. By the way, do we usually finish at 9:30? I thought that's a vague memory. Speaking of karma, I've got a feeling of looking at the clock in the past and thinking, it's nearly 9:30, we should be closing up. So this resonances of past karma. So, Laurie, how do we finish up?
Did you want to do any final chanting?
We can do the sharing of blessings in English. Or maybe as we're talking about the 47? 27. Yes, let's do the sharing of blessings in English. So that's page 27. Now let us chant the verses of sharing and aspiration through the goodness that arises from my practice. May my spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world, may the highest gods and evil forces, celestial beings, guardian spirits of the earth, and the Lord of death, may those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of my life. May they soon attain the threefold bliss and realize the deathless through the goodness that arises from my practice. And through this act of sharing, May all desires and attachments quickly cease, and all harmful states of mind, until I realize Nibbana in every kind of birth. I have an upright mind, fullness and wisdom, austerity and vigor. May the forces of delusion not take hold, nor weaken my resolve. The Buddha is my excellent refuge, unsurpassed is the protection of the Dhamma. The solitary Buddha is my noble guide. The Sangha is my supreme support. Supreme power of all these, may darkness and delusion be dispelled. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddha Tharan, the Lord, the perfectly enlightened and blessed one, Buddhang Bhagavantang Apivademi. I render homage to the Buddha, the blessed one. Sawakato Bhagavata Dhammo, the teaching so completely explained by him. Dhammang namasami, I bow to the Dhamma. Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho, the Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well. Sanghang namami, I bow to the Sangha. You have some announcements to make, Laurie?
Yes, I do. And first and above all, thank you for returning to us again. You have many old friends here who've known you for many years, and it's always a delight to have you back with us and to share Dhamma with us. So thank you. And my other announcements are that we have the Abhayagiri brought down many, many books. So we have a bunch of new selections over here, so please help yourself. And they're all there for you to take and to read and enjoy. And for those who'd like to practice Dhamma, we can do so in two ways, as I often say. We have a basket in the back for the support of Abhayagiri, but we also have a box here on the right for the support of this community, who is always so generous and inviting us to be here and to have our first Tuesdays here. So, and finally. We need people to stay behind and help put things away, chairs and mats and so on and so forth. So if you could do that, that would be wonderful. And I think Lisa has a question or has a comment? Ajahn Yanako, do you want to make any announcements about Katina or the retreat coming up, or any other? Anything else?
Yeah, I don't think I really need to make any announcements. There's Katina cards at the entrance that give any information about our Katina, and has a cool and memorable picture on the front of us hand sewing last year's Katina robe. And we will be hand sewing this year's Katina robe, so it's an interesting kind of learning experience to go and check it out. Thanksgiving retreat, yeah, the registration isn't quite full because a few people dropped out, so you can check our website for information about that.
Thank you, Bhante.